Hi everyone, and welcome to the first session of Stream 1. My name is Tara Lee and I'm the account manager here at Charity Digital. For audio purposes, I'm a 28-year-old white female with brown hair and I'm wearing a dark blue t-shirt today. So whilst we're waiting for others to join, please do feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box and do let us know where you're joining from today. So I'll start off with an intro to the session. So today's first session is on a spotter's guide to fundraising fads. The session will be delivered by Sadie Jones, who is the CEO at SheBeasts, a community interest company that empowers women to overcome trauma and rebuild their lives. So the session will explore all of the fundraising fads over the last few years and share what the future trends might look like and how charities can respond to the ever-changing fundraising landscape. So now, just before handing over to Sadie, I'll start off by running through a few house rules and pointers for today's session. So the session is being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand at a later date. The slides and other resources used in the session today will also be made available to you by the end of the week. So if you miss something, then please do not worry. Closed captions for today's session are also available. So to enable these, please just go to the bottom of the Zoom window and click on the up arrow, and then you'll see a button next to closed caption that says show subtitle. So during the webinar today, please do ask lots of questions in the Q&A section that Sadie will address during the presentation, and feel free to share any other comments or experiences or top tips in the chat section from your own personal experience. And if there's a particular question that you see in the Q&A that you'd like to also see answered, then please do use the upvote feature so we can prioritize asking and answering that question first. Finally, if you do encounter any sound or image issues, then please do let us know in the chat and we'll do our very best to get this session back to normal as soon as we can. Without further ado, let me hand over to Sadie.
Thanks, Tara. Good morning, guys. I am Sadie Jones, as Tara suggested, and I will be taking you through, crowdfunding, both from the perspective of kind of the trends, but also really giving you some insight into our own experience, having been through crowdfunding. So SheBeasts is an organisation that really focuses on females who are looking to transform. Our methodology is, as a community interest company, to support females who are post-trauma, but we can only do that by the support that we receive from women who we work with who are in a more fortunate position, but also the support that we've been able, I guess, to build up over the last 3 years from a number of organisations. And crowdfunding actually was a big part of what helped us to drive our exposure and to help us grow as a business. So let me share some slides with you, take you on a bit of a journey. And as Tara said, please do feel free to ask me any questions that you would like to. So I am using a slightly different platform to present, so if you just bear with me. I will get these slides moving. Here we go. So crowdfunding basics. What is crowdfunding? So I'm going to imagine that most people are familiar with crowdfunding if you are from a charitable organisation, but it's really just a way to raise money, and it can be a really small contribution from a large group of people. But it does also sometimes allow you to get those larger contributions from other organisations. And by pooling all of that together, it can have a huge impact for you as an organisation and being able to drive a new project or to bring a new revenue stream into the organisation, or also allow you to test a new product. So that there's lots of different opportunities that crowdfunding brings, but fundamentally it's really around that donation investment from a wider community that are supporting either the organisation or a specific fundraising goal, i.e. project that you might be working on. There's three types of crowdfunding. Some of them kind of mix together, if you like, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I take you through the journey that She Beasts went on. But the main three, if you like, is reward-based, and I'll delve into it a little bit more as we go through the slides. But reward-based is really great if you're an organisation that is maybe testing a new product, has got a new concept that's coming into the market. It's a way that you can share some of your own products as well as products that you may be aligned to, and use those as a tool to drive revenue and get people to donate. So it's really great for, new startups, and as I said, like technology-led products, things that are quite tangible, that can be really, really good for reward-based. The next one is equity-based, and that's a little bit more complex, I guess. It's not just about your product, but it's about getting the support of an outside organisation who is an investor. The difference here is you're going to be giving up part of your business for this type of crowdfunding. So it means that the platform or the investment comes from an organisation that potentially will investigate a little bit more into who you are as an organisation, what your challenges are, what your growth plan is, and then they will invest into the business. So it's a little bit more complex, and it also means that you need to be in a position to really understand what your future goals are as well, and whether or not you're happy to give up a stake of the organisation. And then the final one is donation-based, and that's the route that we went down. And donation-based is exactly what it says. It's all about driving donations, either from individuals, from organisations, or potentially from other funding platforms. And all of these have their own platforms that they sit within, and you do have a lot of flexibility with crowdfunding. So it enables you to really explore the platform landscape. That includes obviously how you engage with the audiences, but also kind of how much of a monetary value you'll be giving up at the end of the process for those donations that come through. I would say that the donation based is obviously very much linked to like a social cause. So it's really getting a community behind obviously what you're bringing to market, so whether that's a person-based or whether it's a solution that's going to improve somebody's life. And it's probably one of the most popular, I think, for charitable organisations in the early days when you're still quite new, because it's a fantastic way to drive that additional revenue, build up some communication and noise with your community, and really get some visibility. And that's the route that we went down with as She Beast. So I'm going to give you a bit more insight to the other two platforms, and then I'll take you on kind of the She Beast journey. So as I said, reward-based. So the reward-based crowdfunding, it is really a way for you or for an organisation to get support by giving back. So that can be the product, for example. It could be a certificate. It could be getting a voluntary day involved. It doesn't have to necessarily mean that it has to be a big, huge monetary valued product that you're giving back to those that donate. It's all around a reward. It's very good if you are in that really early stage of kind of building your organisation, because it allows you to not only get the feedback of the market as to kind of what you're doing, but you can very often use some of that reward-based product, for example, can be something that is going to be part of your bigger vision. So I think it's really powerful in that sense. And it allows you to not be tied into one value. So you can have a really low scale reward, as I mentioned. So it could be something like a certificate, all the way up to, let's say, I don't know, you were developing a product that was technology based and it had a subscription to it. You could give away subscription as a reward. So yeah, it's really flexible tool, and it's something that you can add into some of the other crowdfunding options. So we did use an element of the reward based within our donation based crowdfunding. So there is some flexibility with that, depending on what platform that you're using. So if you look at it, other than getting money from any of the crowdfunding options, one of the things that you do get is high visibility. So it gives you an opportunity to engage, to get your audience involved a little bit more, to get them sharing. Also, one of the things you can do, which we did quite a lot of, is getting people that are within our community that maybe align to some of our products. So we're a wellbeing organisation. So looking at, for example, an organisation that offers protein and getting them to align with your campaign and giving a reward back that way. So there's lots of opportunities with reward based, and it really is I think it's a really fantastic way to engage with your wider community, as well as obviously getting the benefit of growing some revenue for a new project. So I'll pause. I don't know if there's any questions, but I'll just pause for a moment. I'm gonna guess no.
Hi Sadie, just to rejoin you, we've not seen any questions come through in the Q&A yet, but we're conscious that there might be a slight delay.
Okay.
So if you still got more to continue with at this
Oh
stage.
yeah, I was just
Okay.
pausing just in case there was any questions, because I was like, I'm talking quite quickly.
Sure, no, brilliant. I'll hand back to you. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Okay, so that was reward-based. Equity-based. So as I mentioned on the previous slide, equity-based, I'd say, is probably more aligned to an organisation that has got a very clear vision. So maybe not so much an early startup as in kind of that seed charitable organisation or organisation. So this is really when you're going to be going out to the market or to the platform. So seed invest is a very popular one. Or AngelList are the two that I've chosen, but there's many platforms that offer the investor route. And this is literally looking at an opportunity for you to go out to the market and talk about your future vision. So where you want to be in 3 years, 5 years from now, what that looks like as a growth plan, and what the amount of support you would need to achieve this end goal. So that could be a project based, or it could be, growing the organization. But with this, there is a lot more risk than with the reward based, or than with the donation based, because fundamentally here you're asking for a business to invest in your organization, and in return they're going to be taking a stake within the business. So there's lots of things to consider. Obviously, giving away a percentage of the organisation needs to be considered. The investor will also be considering what is there a return on investment long term, what is the risk. So this takes a lot of analysis. And if you're obviously in quite an early part of your organisation, sometimes you don't have all of that information yet. I know for us as a business, as we started out, it was very much a vision that was in my head to begin with, and getting all of that down into a format that's presentable to investors can be quite challenging. So it's definitely something that Seed Invest help with. So they are a fantastic platform for that. But it's also something that I think needs a lot more consideration when you look at that crowdfunding option. And if you are using crowdfunding as a way to get a quick boost, this might not necessarily be the right route in those early days, but it is another fantastic route. Okay, so donation-based crowdfunding. So I'm going to take you on the journey that SheBeast went down, and we went down the route of donation crowdfunding. We used the Just Giving platform to do this, and we also combined a little bit of reward-based within that donation-based crowdfunding that we did. So for us, it was a really pivotal step in allowing us to grow as an organisation. At this point, we were about 2.5 years old. I had a much clearer vision of where we wanted to be for the next 3 to 5 years. And for us, it was all about being able to bring in-house some of the opportunities that we had sent out to other organisations. So one of the things I would say with all of the crowdfunding, whatever route you choose to go down, it's really important to have a very specific goal that you're trying to achieve, because that helps you not only relay that back to your audience, but it also gives you really clear numbers to work towards. And obviously, because it's so visible when you do any sort of crowdfunding to the wider community, there's obviously the risk that the crowdfund doesn't work, and that can obviously have an impact on the brand, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But for us, it was an opportunity that we wanted to open an academy, which would allow us to continue the apprenticeship model that we run. So teaching women and giving them qualifications, but doing that in-house rather than sending it out to another organisation. So that was our goal. So I'm going to skip through that slide. So our goal was to obviously open an academy, which was an educational platform. And the benefit of us being able to use the crowdfunding platform was obviously to access the capital to do that. So as a charitable organisation, and I would imagine many of you have the same challenges, sometimes the cash flow can be challenging and obviously driving revenue. So we needed a lump sum to be able to open the academy. And as a community interest company, we didn't want to go down the route of loans at this early stage in the business. So that was a fantastic benefit that crowdfunding was going to allow us to do. We were able to go into the platform, put the amount that we needed to try and drive revenue for. So for us, it was £10,000. And we were able to share that with our community. We started off with doing that within our own community before we put it onto the platform, which is something that I would advise. So the overall goal was 10,000. But when we first posted it on the platform, we'd already achieved around £2,000 of that £10,000 goal. And I think that really helps when you're showing to a wider audience that it's a donation-based crowdfund, that you're already getting support from within your own community for that project. The other benefit, I guess, or one of the massive benefits I saw from doing the crowdfunding is the community building that you get to do. So yes, you've already got a community that support you, but as you can see in this image, we were able to really lean on some of the local gyms that were within our area. So we're based in Birmingham. It allowed us to meet more of the community that go to those gyms, so more of the females that are in those gyms. It allowed us to strengthen our partnerships with some of the brands that were already associated with those gyms. So it really helps you to make a lot of noise, create a new network, get more support, and also find ambassadors who are, going to support you long term. So that, I think, is a priceless benefit that comes from the crowdfunding. There's obviously the market validation. So it allows you to see how many people are actually interested in what you're trying to position in the market. So we received fantastic feedback from women that we'd already worked with, from the gyms as well, that there was kind of a real lack of females coming through as PTs and coaches. So it gave us a sense of, this is going to be something that's not only going to be fantastic for our existing community, but it's going to help us to drive a new revenue stream and grow the business further. And then finally, the flexibility. So, we chose the amount that we wanted to get support with. We were able to drive that ourselves, and the platform allowed us to put in a mix of how we were going to do that. So as I mentioned, we also used some of the reward-based options that you can put in there, as well as asking for donations. So a few tips for launching a campaign. And this isn't just for the donation base, this would also work for reward based. And it would also help with the driving the noise around if you did go down an investor route. But it's, as I said at the beginning, it's having a realistic goal and quite a specific goal. So if we think like when most of us probably use in our businesses, that SMART goal process, very similar, being really specific, being measurable, being realistic. Let's not, be silly in the sense that you could ask for £50,000. But if it's for a very small project that isn't going to provide lots of value back to the wider market, it's probably not very realistic, and you're not going to get the support that you need. And then that's potentially going to have an impact on your team's morale, but also on your brand moving forward. Telling a compelling story. So I think in any walk of life for business, it's really important to have a compelling story. And I think for most organisations in the community space, we have quite compelling stories, so it makes it a little bit easier. But really leaning on your existing customer base, your existing audience, to help tell that story. So we was in a fantastic position. Terry, who was in one of the earlier pictures, was actually one of our first apprentices before we decided to create the academy. So she'd been through an apprenticeship model with us at She Beasts, and she was happy to share her journey and what it would have meant if she'd been able to do that same apprenticeship within the business. She actually now works for us, so that also, you know, made our story around why we want to see women have qualifications, so we can help empower them to get back into the working world after trauma and be in control of their lives. So we really lent on our ethos and our story as a business. So rewards, make them realistic as well. So I think I spoke about it in some of the earlier slides. You know, don't have 100 rewards that are all super costly, that are going to put a lot of stress on you as a business to be able to deliver, that maybe, you know, at the end of the campaign, you're then going to struggle to be able to share that. So have a mix of rewards. So we had everything from certificates that we were able to hand make and share and really low value, all the way up to offering people our transformation packages, which were a few £100s. And we were really fortunate that we got some fantastic support from local businesses. So female independent beauty salons. We had food chains that offered food vouchers. We had gyms that offered spa days. So really get a mix from potential networks, but also from the wider community, so it drives that interest. And again, it helps you share your story, because they're then talking about it to their customers. They then post it on their social media platforms. And communication. You know, the top thing I think with any of the platforms you choose to deliver on is staying communicated with the audience. So drip feeding information, you know, when you reach a milestone, letting the audience know about that. If you're struggling, letting the audience know about that. If you're putting on a day to raise extra funds internally, or if somebody else in your community is doing a marathon for you, talk about that, share the photos. It's really about creating that buzz and keeping it going. And then, yeah, have a clear plan for how you're going to deliver all those rewards at the end, because it's just as important that once you've achieved your goal, that you let your community know that you've achieved it, and then that you celebrate with all those people that have supported you on that journey. Because it can be anything from, you know, a 30-day campaign all the way up to a 3-month, depending on what platform you use. So I'm going to share now just a few of the different routes that we saw revenue come from and the varying scale, because I think that's really important. So we were really lucky that we got a business that supported us, who actually were driving a funding pot that allowed a charitable organisation to be supported with a value up to £2,000 for any purpose that they saw fit. So the Wesleyans supported us, and they were actually how we were able to kickstart our funding. So if you recall, I said we had a £10,000 goal, but before we even posted on the platform, we'd already got a £2,000 donation. And that came from the Wesleyan, and it really allowed us to kickstart the campaign. And it's something that we're very grateful for. They shared it internally within their organisation. They shared it with businesses that they network with, and that they also then supported us long term with the marketing communication that we did post the donation and the end goal. We then had individual businesses. So really fantastic local organisations that are quite small independent beauty salons who did different things. So we had a female beauty salon, and what they did was a raffle on our behalf of a number of their different products that I think it drove around 1,500 in the end for us all together. And also some of those items that were in that raffle were part of our reward element. So you were able to either purchase a raffle in store with them, or you were actually able to go onto our platform and purchase raffles for some of the items that they were sharing. And that was everything from like eyebrow threading, eyelashes. So that was, again, it created quite a lot of noise in that particular area. It allowed us to get lots of shares from females that were buying raffle tickets, that were winning prizes. So again, it really creates that momentum. We also had an organisation who put in what the value would be once we'd achieved our goal for a female to actually go through a qualification. So that was another way that we provided a reward, that we'd have an immediate lady that was able to go through the academy completely free of charge. And again, that came from business support. Dependent on the crowdfunding platform you're on, you're able to actually reach out to larger funders who will match what your funding capacity is. And it's a fantastic way to, in some cases, double the amount of donation revenue that you've already seen coming in. So we did exactly that. Just Giving at the time, luckily, had something that was running with Sport England, which aligns really well to what we do as a business anyway. It's all around, obviously, movement, getting people back into sport, getting people moving. So we were really fortunate that that happened to be on the Just Giving platform at the same time. And we were able to receive an additional 4,000 that matched 4,000 that we'd already raised, which really helped us, speed up the process. So in total, I think we ran for 60 days our crowdfunding. So to be at sort of £8,000, I think we were at £8,000 about 6 weeks in, which, when you think about it as a small business, is a substantial amount of money that's going to have a huge impact. And it's also aligning us with a fantastic organisation. And Sports England have gone on to support us as we've continued to grow. So we really created a strong network with them, but also with their wider community, because they've introduced us to other organisations that we now collaborate with. And that's also helped us get further funding in other areas, so through grants and bids. And then your local community. So, having people that love your brand already, that are willing to go out and talk about what you're doing, that actually do their own little fundraising. So, fantastic mother and daughter, they went out and did an inflatable challenge, which they got sponsored for, and they then obviously shared that sponsorship on the platform. So again, it got us out to a wider community. It aligned to what we do as a brand. It had them moving, and it helped drive more of our funding capability. So yeah, it's really important, I guess, is what I'm saying, to get as many people involved as possible, because it not only drives the donations, but it helps give you brand visibility, and it helps create momentum and noise around what you're doing, which can only be beneficial long term. So rewards, I touched on it a little bit earlier. But for the rewards, it's good to have a mix of options, and it again helps you to widen your pool. So SheBeast is very much a female-led organisation, but as you can see here in this image, we've got a fantastic gentleman who got involved. He was from one of the sports centres where we were doing some charity fundraising days. And yeah, they were able to help us grow the audience. So we had more males coming forward to support, which is great for us, because it's a big part of what we struggle with sometimes, because people think because we're female-led, that basically that means we don't work with men in any capacity, and that's just not true. Okay. Oh, so I think we have a couple of questions. Yeah, we're almost at the end as well.
Sure, that's absolutely great, Sadie. If you've not got too much more to run through, we can continue and then wrap up with the Q&A at the end, if that works for
Okay.
you. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
perfect.
fine.
Brilliant.
Perfect. So yeah, so the rewards I would say is that community piece. And I think that's really important in your crowdfunding. It's probably one of the most important elements because you are leaning on this community to support you. So having incentive to contribute, rewarding the people that are giving you rewards is great. So sharing their story, reposting them through your marketing campaigns, including them in your newsletters. Sense of belonging, giving away stuff that's part of your branding. So as you can see here, we gave away basketball kits. We had lots of our flyers. Build all of this into your marketing. You know, these rewards are fantastic celebrations of how, as a community, we're supporting each other, how we're giving back. You know, they're giving to you, but you're also giving back to them. And more importantly, I guess, or just as importantly, it helps build loyalty. All of the people we worked with throughout that crowdfunding period over 60 days, we've continued to grow our relationships with them. We got fantastic customers, so women coming through the academy. We use some of the gym locations to deliver our workshops. So it really creates a longer picture than just that monetary value. And I think that's really important. Okay. And then this was just all of the different people that donated and the feedback that we got. And I guess again, it's just about that good sense of community, that good feeling, as well as achieving our goal. So just a few risks and downsides before we wrap up and go into the questions. And I think I mentioned it earlier. The biggest risk, I think, is the failure risk. One, to your morale as a company. If you fail, you're going to feel quite downhearted. But also the risk then of it being visible to the wider audience that the project that you're really keen to deliver hasn't had a lot of feedback. So that's one of the risks. The fulfillment challenge. So making sure that anything you give as a reward, you are able to fulfill. And obviously, when you're a small business, that can be quite hard. If you suddenly get a huge input from the wider community, have you got enough rewards to fulfill that? Competition, the crowdfunding platforms are super busy. So really think about your campaign, and are you going up against a really similar brand? Is there a way that you can make your USP even more dazzling? And then, yeah, reputation. Obviously, all of these things can affect your reputation if you don't deliver on the rewards, if you don't reach your goal, if you don't communicate with your audience. You know, what do people then think of you as a business and your general feedback? So they're just a few things, I think, just to think about when you are setting up the campaign. And then just a few of the challenges. So time, yeah, as I said, we did it in kind of 2 months to reach 10K, which is a bit of a scary target when you say it out loud. You've got to take into account, obviously, the cost of living and what's happening in our economy as it stands. Do people have spare money to donate? So make sure that your donation scale is realistic, that everybody can get involved. Building those relationships, that can be challenging if you don't have a team that are quite forward facing, actually reaching out to the wider community and getting their support. And there's no guarantee of that additional funding that I talked about. Not every platform always will have an additional funder that aligns to you. So it might mean that you have to generate all of that amount, whether it's 5K, 10K, 50K yourselves. So again, something to think about when you put that amount that you're going to be working towards. And then we're just at the Q&A and key takeaways. So yeah, for me, I'm a big fan of crowdfunding, and I will be trying another one for our new project, which is safe housing and an actual placement for these ladies, which we're going to be doing in 2025. I haven't decided on what route yet. But yeah, it's a great way to raise capital, and I advise or promote it to anybody. The viral campaign, so you know, make sure that you create a buzz, make it long term as well. Utilize all of the great feedback you get. Do as much marketing off the back of it as possible, because that's going to help grow your business. And then just, yeah, make sure that you're planning, that you're really specific, and that you're transparent with everybody that's involved, and that you communicate as much as you can. And any questions?
Sadie, thank you so much for that presentation. It was really, really interesting. Moving on to the questions, I'm really pleased to confirm that we've had a few come through. So we'll dive straight in and we'll get through as many as we can. I'm conscious that we've got about 5 minutes. The first question that's been upvoted by a couple of people is, do the platforms take a cut? What is considered a good return on investment in terms of value reward? Would a certificate for £10 or a water bottle for £50, etc. work? And then, sorry, I think the end of that one's cut off, but hopefully that's enough to get started with.
Yes, so the platforms will take a percentage and it varies across the platform. So it can be anything from 1% of that end amount all the way up to, I think the highest we've seen was about 3 point something percent on the platforms that we looked at. The value of your rewards, I think, is really more based on your audience. So you kind of need to have a feel of your audience. So I think we did our certificates at like £5, but then we might have had some of our basketball tops at £40. So it's kind of judging what the market value is for those items and what you think your audience would be willing to donate. So, you know, if you work with people that have got quite a low budget generally, having something that's £200 is probably going to be unachievable for them, no matter what the product is. So it's a mix of the market rate versus you knowing your audience a little bit.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Sadie. The next question is, as not-for-profits generally are by guarantee rather than shares, what is the nature of the equity to give away?
So I think it depends on what type of not-for-profit you are. So for example, for us, even though we're community interests, we're limited by shares. So we're allowed up to a certain range. If you're a charity, I believe it's completely different. And I think dependent on the platform you use, they will be able to advise you what that would look like from a share basis. So it's very different for a community interest company to a charity to a social enterprise. But there should be some guideline in your asset lock. So, for example, as a community interest company, we have an asset lock which kind of outlines what we're allowed to offer as shares. But I would advise, getting proper support on that before you even go onto the platform. So maybe getting some legal advice.
Thanks so much, Sadie. And then next question is from Louise, and Louise asked, how often do you think is okay to launch a crowdfunding campaign?
I don't think there's a rule of thumb. I would say probably for your own sanity, because it's quite hard work and it's very intense. Maybe twice a year is probably the maximum. We did ours last year. Was it the year before? I think it was last year. And we're probably going to do one in the summer of 2025. Also, as well, I guess it's from your audience's perspective. If you're constantly asking them for money, they might get a little bit like, we don't have it, we can't keep sharing. So I think having a good break of at least 6 months, I would say, is probably a good rule of thumb. And it's quite stressful for you as a business to generate all that additional marketing and rewards. So I think anything more than that would be a push.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sadie. I think that's really, really sound advice. And then, moving on, we've got one final question from Jennifer, who asked, realistically, how much do you think you could raise through crowdfunding?
I think dependent on what the end goal is, there is crowd funds that literally raise millions. There is no ceiling. But I think again, you've got to be realistic as to what you're asking for. If you're asking, I don't know, to have a second location as a charity and you need £50,000 to do that, and you've been around for a while, your audience might support that, and you might be able to get the additional funding from another community-based funder to match whatever you create. So that's realistic. But I don't know, if you was trying to buy a minibus and you're asking for 100,000, then people are probably not going to give you that. So I think it's dependent on what your ask is and what your existing visibility is already like, because that will play a factor. And also if it's got a gimmick to it, which sounds really bad, but people follow trends, don't they? So if it's a massive trend, technology-based solution, you might get a lot more traction than if you're asking to support a building. So yeah, there's no rule of thumb. Anything is possible. I mean, we didn't think we would do 10,000 in 8 weeks because we were still quite small at the time, and we managed to achieve that. And we're going to be asking for quite a substantial amount more to launch our safe housing program, but that's going to take a lot more thought. So I think, yeah, it's weighing up what you're asking for and where you are as a business and what your existing support's like, because you're going to be heavily reliant on people sharing that with the wider community.
Sure. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Thank you so much, Sadie. Yeah, so I'm afraid that is all we have time for this session. Thank you once again, Sadie, for joining us today. And just as a reminder to those in the audience that today's session is being recorded and will be uploaded to watch on demand within a week's time. And the slides and other resources will be made available to you by the end of the week. So again, please don't worry if you've missed anything. So the next session in stream 1 will be starting shortly, and it will focus on how to get more donors from social media. So please do join us for that. Alternatively, you can head back to the agenda and check out what's going on in stream 2. And actually that session is going to be on how to cultivate stronger donor relationships through personalized video. So yeah, wishing you all a great rest of your time at the event today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.